Welcome to Foundational Steps, the show. I get to talk to people about the choices they've made in life and how they got where they are today. I'm lucky to talk to someone I can call a friend, Alberto Zeni, today. He is an entrepreneur, an electronics engineer, and a very successful actor. You might have seen him on the Netflix show Narcos Mexico, or one of his many other projects. Alberto is a very insightful person, and we cover a lot of ground in this conversation. We talk about living in Durango, Mexico, life as an entrepreneur and an actor, how we can literally create the reality we live in, and how being a server helped him in so many ways in life. And at the end of the conversation, he gives his main two advice points for actors, which is probably good advice for everyone. Links for Alberto can be found in the show notes. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. And to go deeper or ask questions, follow us on Patreon, foundationalsteps.com, and all the major social media platforms. Enjoy the conversation. Welcome, Alberto. It's good to see you, man. I mean, it's
you too, man.
it's been a pandemic.
It's been a pandemic.
It's
been a little longer than a pandemic.
Yeah, for real. It's I guess the last time was just after Burning Man 2019.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, just between Burning Man, acting, I feel like there's a million things to talk about. I just let me know how you've been first. I mean, God, it's been a pandemic. So you got married or got engaged?
Not yet. I got engaged.
Got engaged.
Yeah. I moved back to Mexico. I got engaged, and now I live in a small town called Durango.
Okay, wait, Durango in Mexico, though.
Yeah.
Okay, because I know Durango, Colorado. I've actually keep on looking at Durango, Colorado as a place to move just because it seems very central. It's gorgeous mountains. It's close to desert. It's close to skiing and forests, and it's just beautiful.
Sounds lovely.
Yeah, it's what's Durango, Mexico like?
Pretty much the same.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's a combination between the desert and we're surrounded by the Sierra. So there's a lot of mountains around. There's a lot of greenery, a lot of ecotourism. In the city, like I said, it's a small place. It's about 600,000 people, and it's very colonial.
Yeah, 600,000 people. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's a city. I don't know what the.
Yeah, it's a city.
It's a city. But it's God, LA is.
It's so big.
15 million or something like that in the LA County. It's ridiculous. Yeah. It's just insanity.
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this was a step down from the fast-paced, moving all over the place, doing things all the time kind of environment. And it's nice. I mean, aside from the fact that there's not a lot of things to entertain yourself, it's a beautiful place. If you like I said, if you like going outdoors, it's a perfect place to be.
Yeah, sounds beautiful. I've always loved Mexico. I mean, anytime I've been down to Mexico, it just like people are really nice. The scenery, surroundings, the environment is amazing. Whether you're on West Coast, East Coast, or in Central Mexico, and there's history. Like there's. Like when you're in Mexico City, it's so similar to me as being in Europe because there's buildings that are hundreds and hundreds of years old, that go back to, the Spanish invasion and everything else. And then, of course, the ruins, that are not easily seen in Mexico City that I remember, but some of the ancient ruins are just, I mean, come on. It's like there's real history there. Like you don't have any trace of that in America for the most part.
Think about this. America was discovered a little before the 1500s, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so our country, Mexico, is a little older than 500 years old. Whereas the US, it's a little above 200.
Yeah.
So the history is definitely a lot more. And we also had like you said, the ruins. So now, if you go to Mexico City, you have the ruins next to a colonial building, next to a super modern
Yeah.
technological building. So it's very interesting, the entire environment. And there's people from all over the world, like in New York. So yeah, it's there's a
Yeah,
lot.
no, it's fascinating. I mean, Rome is probably to Mexico City is, you have an electronic store on one corner, and then just down the street you have the Coliseum. And
Yeah,
it's like, how do these two things, go side by side? It's just wild to me.
yeah.
Um, so you grew up in Mexico. Where in Mexico did you grow up?
I'm from Monterrey.
Monterrey.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a coast town?
Yeah, no, not really. It's a mountain town. It's south of Texas. It's like 2 hours south of Laredo, Texas.
Okay.
So it's
That's
more
funny
than,
because we also have Monterey, California, but it's a coast town.
yeah, that's a coast town.
It's like everywhere in the United States, it's just you know, a, um, a facsimile of somewhere else in the world. Because wherever the conquerors were prior to getting to the United States, they've already named everywhere
Yeah.
else.
Well,
You know,
also consider California was part of Mexico at some point.
yeah,
California, New Mexico, um, Colorado, Texas was all part of Mexico. So there's a
Colorado was part of.
that's yeah.
Oh, I didn't
All
realize it.
the entire south of the U.S. was Mexican.
God, that's funny. It's been so long. We learned this as Americans, maybe, I don't know, for 1 week in high school or junior high. We learn some of the history, like the Louisiana Purchase or something like that.
Yeah,
You gloss over it, you move on, unless you're in history or something like that. You never go back to it. It's like, what's the point of holding on to some of this knowledge? But it's always interesting to revisit it, different contexts, and you're
yeah.
thinking, it's like, yeah, it's just
If you
interesting.
think about Los Angeles, for example, or California in general, you have a lot of names in Spanish. I mean,
Oh
just
yeah.
Los Angeles is
Oh yeah.
actually in
Los
Spanish.
Angeles, City of Angels.
Exactly. So, I mean, just considering that we take it for granted because we've been there for so long, or it's just common knowledge now. But if you think about it a little bit, I mean, it doesn't make sense to have that name for a city in a place where it's English based.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say most of American culture is, you know, the melting pot is real, and nowadays I would say the predominant culture is Black culture in America, like the
Mhm.
fashion, music, just kind of
Yeah,
the rhythm of the country would be, Black America. Like it came from, our African descendants, and a lot of which were a slave population. And for some reason or another, oh no, it's American. It's like you like America, it somehow or another turns a blind eye to aspects of its culture, of its history, of its heritage, if it's anything other than Anglo English, white European, then like they'll accept that. But everything else, it's American. It just gets generified for whatever reason. And I feel like that's part of the reason why there was a movement, I don't know how many years ago, but of, I'm African American, I'm Mexican American. It's because there's kind of a know your roots, know your cultural roots. But to me, it's always been, to the people that don't want to acknowledge that aspect of our culture and that aspect of who we are as a country, it's the Americans' way of disregarding, aspects that they don't want to look at and still claiming it as their own. Whether you're talking about Elvis Presley's music or whatever.
yeah.
Um, Not exactly what I
Well,
thought we'd be talking about, but
yeah, yeah. We got in a very interesting subject. Listen, in that regard, I think because I lived in the U.S. for so long, because I was born and raised in Mexico,
hmm
and I see, and I was subject of racism or classism and a whole bunch of other things in the U.S. This thing about the identity of the country, that it's so divided because everybody wants to belong somewhere.
Hmm.
The reality that I saw when I was up there, and that I lived through, is that there's no, and this is not to demerit the claim of each ethnic group, but
Hmm.
there's no combination of Mexican American or African American. It's, you are all American.
Yeah.
You are raised as Americans within the parameters of the entire cultural, social, economic situation up there.
Hmm.
So your taste is very American. Even if you have a particular liking to, let's say, you were talking about the African American community or the Black community, they're very urban in general. There's obviously exceptions to every rule, but in general, they're very urban, and that's kind of their way of being. But that urban is still very American.
Yeah.
And if you say Mexican American, well, they're not Mexican American. They're American that have a heritage
Yes.
from Mexico or other Latino countries in the world. But their likings, their music, their taste, their everything is very American.
Yeah.
Even if they have some like little dashes of, Mexican music
Yeah.
or Latino music or whatever, they're very American. If you put one of those people in, let's say, talking about the Black community, if you grab anybody that was born in the Bronx and you put him in Senegal, they may not fit.
Yep.
It's not because they come from a continent that it's Africa, which is also very varied because you have a whole bunch of different countries with
Yep.
different rules and culture and everything. It doesn't. There's not a direct connection. If I were to be in the U.S. and I become a citizen, I would be a Mexican American because I'm Mexican. I was
Right.
born and raised in Mexico. I have the taste of a Mexican person, and I moved to the U.S. and became an American. And by this stage, I've spent so much time over there that my taste and my upbringing is kind of a mix between
Yeah.
both of them. But I mean, like I said, it's not to disregard or diminish anybody's claim to their heritage. I think it's a beautiful thing to have it, obviously. But there is a distinction between feeling that you are from somewhere and being actually from that place.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
you know,
A friend of mine was, his family's from Sierra Leone, and he was born in the United States. He's first generation. And so he went back to visit some family. And I if I'm remembering correctly, I don't think he went, recently. Like, I mean, like in his early years, he went, later when he was an adult. And it was, if I'm remembering, his retelling to me, he realized how American he was, like
yeah,
in
yeah,
being there and looking around, seeing the culture, even with parents from Sierra Leone, from a different culture. He had a flavor of that, but he was not from Sierra Leone, and he recognized very immediately that he was American. And I've heard other friends say similar things. And that's one of the things that I've seen also
so,
traveling. Like,
so
when I
consider how,
travel, like, I'm
yeah,
American.
oh, absolutely.
Whether I like it or not, I'm
Yeah,
American.
yeah, yeah. And consider how people see you when you go to other places. If a Mexican American come to Mexico, no one in Mexico is going to think, "Oh, you're Mexican.
Yeah.
You're American,"
Yeah.
right? So it's a very complex subject, and I think it's beautiful in many different ways. Like to
Yeah.
claim the heritage of your family, of your past, which is also a very American thing. You guys have this custom of figuring out all the past of where you're from, and I mean, to say the
Okay.
least, most of the genetic companies generated in the U.S.
Yeah.
But in Mexico, there's no such a thing as like, oh, I'm gonna go check all my heritage. Like, where do we come from in Europe, and where do we come from in the Mayan Empire, and it's
Okay.
not
So
that common.
because of Okay, because you're saying that, obviously you have lighter skin. You're not, what so in my American mind, and what I'm bombarded with on TV and everything else, I think, okay, well, you have to be of European descent.
Mhm.
So does that question or does that thought not even pop up in kind of a Mexican culture?
Not in general.
Really?
In my mind, yes, because I lived in the US for
Because you lived
so
in the
long.
US, right?
And because it's such a common thing over there that I was like, well, let me figure it out. And I happen to be I did the genetic test, and I have to be a big mix of a lot of things.
Hmm.
Like I have blonde people, blue eyes, and green eyes in my family, and I have brown people, and it's like we're a big mix of ethnic groups,
Yeah.
and it's beautiful. I mean, we have some Mayan, and we have some French, and we have some Jewish, and we have some Arab, and we have some everything.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a single ethnic group in the world today that it's quote unquote pure.
Right. Well, I did the one of the genetic testing as well because I didn't think there'd be any surprises, and there weren't really. I think the one kind of quasi surprise is I have like a 0.5% or something Anatolian, but that's still kind of in the region of both my mom's side of the family and my dad's side of the family.
Mhm.
So
Where
wasn't
are your
that
parents
big.
from?
My dad's side of the family is from Romania, and my mom's side of the family is from the former Yugoslavia.
Okay.
Um, and it shows in the genetic testing. Like I came back as like 58% Balkan and 47% Ashkenazi Jew, and then a little smattering of Anatolian and unknown is what it's currently classified as.
Unknown.
Unknown, yeah. Like, okay, cool.
That.
That's the alien DNA,
I thought the same.
right? I'm like, evidently, very few people will be actually 50, percent of either of their parents, or I think males can be 51-49 or something like that in favor of their mom. But evidently, it's not common. There's always some weird unknown variables.
Right.
Um, but in doing that, one of the things that I looked at is that you and I and every other person on earth share a common mother ancestor, I think like 200,000 years ago or something like that, and a common father ancestor 180,000 years ago or something like that. So, of all of the people tested by the company that I was tested by, every single one of those people has a common ancestor, common mother, and a common father hundreds of thousands of years ago, which means you and I are related by by genetics, but our most common ancestor, I mean, it could be earlier. We'd have to look, obviously, but it's at the very least, it's 180,000 years ago, and I believe it's our father progenitor. So if you think of it like that, because at one point in time they figured that there was you know due to whatever, there was only a few thousand people on the planet, and those few thousand people then repopulated the earth, and that was within the last couple 100,000 years, or I think maybe within the last uh 50,000 years or something like that. I can't remember all the math and numbers, and I don't really care that much, but it's interesting. And for Americans that obsess about what your background is and where you're coming from, and in other elements, you know, to me, it's like, well, maybe we would have less problems if we just focused on the fact that we all share common ancestors. Like,
I
doesn't mean
mean,
you come to family dinner, but hey, like, if you need to eat, we're here for you, kind of thing. I mean, I guess it's a liberal idea, but that's, kind of my perspective.
that would be lovely. That'd be great. But we are human beings, and we're curious.
Yeah.
And in that curiosity, we'll find something that makes us different or sets us apart so we can find something to do
Yeah.
because we're curious. If it was not that particular issue, it would be maybe something else. I mean, think about this for a second. When and where did the idea of being white being better came from? You know, if you go into the history of humanity, at some point the darker skin was the commanding voice in the world, and then at some point it was female, and then at some point it changed to being male, and it changed to being white, and we just follow through with the changes, and eventually it's gonna do something different. I mean,
Yeah.
we are taking over now so much because they're the majority,
Yeah.
and so we'll have to go through that process of evolution. So we are curious beings. We like contrast and we like changes, and even if we resist them, we're part of it. It's
Yeah.
an evolution, like I said.
No, I'm 100% on the same page. I feel the same way. I think that the stories we get caught up in oftentimes become the stumbling blocks and become the point of contention. And if we're such story, like I remember years ago, my dad and I were in the car going somewhere. This must have been like 9 years ago, and I said, facts don't matter. And he said, what do you mean? And I just got on this rant of, facts don't matter. They never have mattered. Whether you're talking about the Bible or whether you're talking about politics, the only thing that matters is a good story. Because if you tell a good story, then people more often than not don't have the interest, don't have the time, or are just moved, emotionally, spiritually so much that they just are gonna take that story as truth because it moves them. Therefore, it's real. And if they can feel it, then it's real. And if it's real, then why do they need to go do research? And
Yeah.
uh, regardless of what you believe, from a spiritual context or philosophical context, um, if you trace your beliefs, then you're going to find that it almost doesn't make sense. Like, there's kind of a brainwashing of sorts that we go through. It's a combination starting with our parents, then kind of moving to the community that they expose us to, and then eventually, now with the age of TV, internet, and everything else, we get exposed to that. And so, those stories shape us, and and then we start to glom on to certain aspects, and we create our own story. And they've proven most of our memories are not accurate, and or if they are, they're
Yeah.
only partially accurate. So,
We make
I
up most of them.
second,
We make up most of them.
yeah. And now the neurologist or neuroscience is saying that our reality, like 90% of it is created in our mind, and there's only about 10% sense perception. I think that's the number. Don't quote me. that we take in, whether it's visual or touch, smell, whatever, to help us create that reality. The rest of it, because anything and everything we experience through our physical sensation is happening after the event. So everything we're responding to, everything we're taking in happened milliseconds earlier. So we're trying to recreate it as we go. And our brains are these predictive machines to try to, project into the future to, get a better model of what's going on. So, we're all just swimming in a pond of or a sea of our imaginations, and trying to figure it out. And I think some of us are doing a pretty good job.
Well, think about what you just said. If we're always creating this reality, as you said it, then we have the ability to create the reality we want to live in.
Yes.
Have the ability to say, I will see my life in a different light. I will make my life better
Hmm.
or happier or or not, however you want to see it, however you want to define it. But we do have the power to change that. And it's not because there's a big debate between, oh yeah, you think about it and then it becomes that. Well, yeah, it does become that, not because the world is doing things differently, but because how you interact with such a world. So if you say something to me and I'm in a reality that I created, that it's dark and difficult and conflictive, then I'm going to react to it in that way. But if my perception of my world is positive and full of options and possibilities, then whatever you say to me, that's how I'm going to see it. So that's how we change the world, not literally the world outside the
Yeah.
material world, but how we perceive it that is going to make a difference in how we live our lives and how we have our world being.
Yep. Yeah, sometimes refer to, there's I don't remember their name, but it was a celebrity, and they're talking about, oh my God, the people are so amazing, and wherever they went, it could have been abroad, it could have been here in the United States, and my knee jerk reaction is like, well, if you're known for doing something that makes people happy, and you show up and they know who you are and you're interacting with them with love and compassion, because these are the people essentially paying your bills because they're your fans, and then everywhere you go you just assume that these are your fans because you don't know any better, and why wouldn't they be, if you're a famous person, and you're going to treat them with love and respect and compassion because again they paying your bills, they're buying the movie tickets or what have you, the albums or whatever it was, then yeah, probably everyone's going to love you that much more. It's like, and treat you that much better. And it's like, well, if everyone just treated everyone with compassion because, oh, you might be my fan, you might be the be my biggest fan even, and I don't know that, but if you might be, then if I treat you with as much compassion and love and everything else as possible, then if you weren't my fan before, you're probably going to be now. And I think that obviously we're both in entertainment industry, and I think that allows us to have a perception or think about things in a different, maybe there's a lawyer or a barista or whatever that's thinking, well, you know I'm not a musician, I'm not an actor, I don't have the ability to have fans. It's like, well, yeah, you do. Don't you go to a restaurant and have your favorite waitress, or your bar and have your favorite bartender,
Your
or your
friend.
yeah, or your
Mm.
friends? It's like, these are your fans. So like it's to me, like there is a reality that people don't see or don't want to look at, which is, and this is what to me is what social media and what all this stuff is about. It's really for us to get a lesson in the fact that um, everyone can be your fan, everyone can be your friend, everyone can support everyone, and there's no reason not to have all of that because people make a living off of Instagram. People make a living serving coffee, and my fiance is a waitress. She's an artist and she's an amazing artist, but she still isn't quite paying the bills that way, so she's got a serving job. And she hates it, but she also loves it. And the reason why she loves it is because she gets to see interesting things, hear interesting things, interact with people, and she's amazing at making people have a good evening. Whether it's making them laugh, being goofy, or just relating to them. Um, and the longer we've been together, she's been waiting tables for, I don't know, I don't want to say her age. Don't know if she'd like that, but for
For a while, for a
for a
while,
long
let's
time,
say
yeah.
for a while.
And and it's because it's a job that's reliable, and she knows that, even on her worst day, there's going to be at least, one client, one patron that made her night, because she either got them to laugh, or, no one else was tipping and they tipped her really well, or whatever it was. And, and now that she's, realizing that her business as an artist is the same as her business as a waitress and as a server, and she's starting to use all of those techniques of being a great server as an artist, and she's starting to build a community, and she's having more and more repeat customers, and it's really amazing to watch and see, now that she's found how to do, something that she enjoys doing as an artist, and she's able to, put that out there and then use all of her other skills,
Yeah.
um, to
Well, I
bolster
mean,
it.
I was a server for a few years, and that is mainly the reason why I can speak English the way I can
Oh,
today.
interesting.
Yeah, when I started serving, I never did it before, because I have a fairly good career in Mexico before I moved to the US. And then I started serving, and I didn't speak English. I my English was very, very poor, and I never served anybody. So the entire experience of being empathetic to people that are having a bad day, but they want to have a good meal, or the people that are just a-holes because they can, because they're paying to be a-holes,
Hmm.
or people that are having a family experience. And the fact that a lot of the people that came to my tables actually helped me speak better, understand better the behavior of people. Because I mean, I advise any actor that wants to get into it seriously to go and serve tables for a while,
Yeah.
at least for a few months, because you get to see so many different personalities. You get to see so many different ways of interacting with people. You get to deal with those people. You get to put on different masks because you want to make that extra tip, and
Yeah.
you start creating a laboratory with each table that visits you, because everybody's different. So you
Hmm.
have to create all of these different personas to make it so to make that extra buck. And even if you don't need to wait tables or have extra money for whatever reason, just having the experience of doing that, it's very enlightening, it's very educational, and it's very interesting overall, just to be able to interact with people on a daily basis, and a big amount of people and different kinds of people all day long.
Yeah.
So going back to what we were talking about, how we perceive our world, I mean, what your girlfriend is doing is she's basically interpolating or transpolating the experience of serving people to what she actually wants to do, which is that artistry. And listen, I think it takes us different amount of times to understand certain things about ourselves,
Oh, yeah.
and the potential that we have. And I can tell you this, from my move to Mexico and my meeting my future wife, she has nothing to do with entertainment whatsoever. Whatsoever. She's an entrepreneur, and she's an amazing entrepreneur, and she's ultra educated. She's taught me so many things in many different ways. And she reminded me of that kid that I was, with wide eyes, full of curiosity, really willing to go the extra mile to achieve
Hmm.
anything with purpose. Because one of the things that happened to me when I was in the States was that I lost my purpose, because it's so difficult and so transactional, and you have so many no's in your career. We go to so many auditions, and we book a very small amount,
Yeah. Fraction.
a fraction, a percentage. Um, and suddenly I didn't realize it, and I lost my purpose. Like, why am I doing this? What is the purpose of me doing anything at all? And so when I got back and I started this relationship, I started seeing how she lives to empower people, and she lives to serve others in many different ways. She's part of this huge community of entrepreneurs that are looking to improve the country.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, it's incredible. And through the conversations that we've had, I started regaining my old self.
Hmm.
And through that, I was like, okay, I forgot that I had a purpose, and my purpose was to do the same as she was doing, to empower people, to create opportunities for myself, to create opportunities for my family, to create opportunities for others, to launch new things, to innovate, to be creative, to tell stories, uh, to touch people's hearts. And I started this old machinery that was inside of me. I started oiling it, and I started putting it in motion. So, for example, now this small place that we have, this is actually a very traditional, historical Hollywood film city.
Yeah.
Like
Interesting.
big cities, big cities, big films in the 50s from Hollywood came to Durango to shoot. So all the spaghetti westerns. John Wayne has a ranch. Well, I mean, he's passed, but
Right.
he owned a lot of pieces of land, and he owned a ranch in Durango because he loved it so much, because it's so beautiful.
Hmm.
So we are retaking that history of the place, and we're launching the film industry once more. So
That's
I'm
awesome.
gathering all the people that have to do with filmmaking, and cutting deals right and left, and creating an ecosystem where other people from all over the world can come here and redo the things that they used to be done here, because they can, and they're going to be able to, once we have the right education with the people that are here, and the right tools and all of the things that we are creating. So there's a huge purpose now to empower the people here, to empower the city to do more, to regain that history, to grow. And obviously there's a whole bunch of other ideas around that in regards of growing. There's a beautiful idea of creating the first intelligent city in Mexico.
Hmm.
At the same time as we're growing the film industry,
So
there's
technologically, then
yeah,
adding in elements of
just
whatever.
different things. So if we get to improve the lives of all the people here and the people that may come here,
Hmm.
then it's an incredible purpose.
Wow, it's amazing. So, I mean, have you been acting since you were a little kid?
I started acting when I was 18, but I started in the entertainment when I was 14.
Okay.
Yeah, I started singing and dancing, and I actually released an album that went nowhere.
I didn't know that. That's funny. Because I just know you as an actor. And so your first, because I used to sing and dance as well. I taught modern dance and all through junior high, high school, and college. I sang. I competed in whatnot, and I always thought that'd be part of my my future to some extent. And I can't remember the last time I sang in front of anyone, even karaoke. Like I can't even can't remember. So
That's
that's how you started. That's how you were
that's how I
thinking.
started. Yeah, I wanted to be a singer more than anything, and
So what happened to that?
I I did it for a few years, and then I released an album, and nothing happened with it. And then I started developing this chronic sinus problem.
Hmm.
So my range kind of got diminished, and my voice wasn't as good as it was before. And I just didn't want to do it anymore. And then at the same time, I got invited to do musical theater, and because I was singing and I was dancing, and
Yeah.
then why not? That's kind of a normal
Yeah.
transition. And then I loved it. I loved being on the theater, and then I got to act a little, and I loved it. And then I got a scholarship to go to an acting school in Mexico City, and I just fell in love with the entire acting experience. And from then on, it was all acting and acting and acting because I wasn't singing anymore. So it was just dedicated to the acting.
So it was an easy decision then. There was no big, hemming, hawing, no resistance from your family or anything like that. It was just like, no, this is what I want to do.
You know what? My I come from a very non entertaining family. My parents were my dad was a gynecologist and my mom was a chemist. But my dad was very in tune with music, and he had a beautiful voice, and every time there was a party, he would grab the microphone and sing with the mariachi or sing like old tunes or whatever. He just loved it, and he had a beautiful voice to do it. So I grew up around that sensibility, even if they were very not into the entertainment. My
Hmm.
dad was very much into that, and my mom loved it. And when I decided that I wanted to pursue something in entertainment, since I started so young, it was kind of normal for them already. And they said, "Yeah, I mean, if you want to do it, go do it. Just have something to back up, to fall back on." And so I'm an engineer. I have a degree in electronics, and I loved it because um, I want to be an inventor when I was a kid. I wanted to create a rocket to go to space and
Yeah.
a whole bunch of other things. And then life happened, and I started going into the entertainment. But they were very supportive from every single time. I mean, there was no, oh no, you're never going to be an actor, or you're never going to be a singer, or nothing at all. Because I started working so young, and I started paying for everything myself, that it was also kind of like, I mean, this is what I want to do with my life, and it's
Yeah.
making sense, and it's giving me a way of living. And they were like, you're good at it, you love it. And I back then, when I was younger, I had a huge community that I was moving around with, and so it was very normal for them. And yeah, they were very supportive from day one. I never had that experience of my family saying, "No, you're never going to go into that, you're going to die of hunger and whatnot." Like, no, they were, I mean, my dad offered me his private practice at some point, and I was
Yeah.
like, let me give it a shot, let me see what it is, and if I like it, I'll take it, and if I don't like it, I'll let you know. So I went into the hospital, and I started seeing, people dying, people getting hurt.
How old
And
were you at this time?
I was probably I started college when I was 16, so 15 maybe.
Oh, okay. So it was still early then, very early on.
Yeah.
Because I was just thinking, if you're already studying, being an engineer, then man, that's a huge departure to go to medicine. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, this was before I got into the career.
gotcha.
And so I went into the hospital, and I didn't like it. I was like, there's so much pain and suffering here, and I want to make people happy. I don't
Yeah.
want to see them suffer so
I
much.
would do we would do I was part of a magicals group in a cappella group in high school, and we do a lot of gigs in hospitals, convalescent homes, senior homes, and I loved the audience while I was performing. But going there and leaving, like I hated it because
They're hard.
it was so hard. It was so hard to look around and like see, when you first walk in before you're performing, you look around and you're looking at people dying. You're looking at people who are in pain, and there wasn't a lot of joy. There wasn't a lot of happiness.
Yeah.
And then when you're done, you can kind of see their eyes kind of glaze over, and they're like back to waiting to die. It was
Yeah.
horrible.
Well, one of my experiences was going into the the cancer ward for kids.
Hmm.
So I saw, I don't know, 50 kids in their beds,
That would be
and
the worst, I think.
it's heartbreaking. You
Yeah.
know, I did a small show for them, and I brought gifts, and I made them smile for a little while. But it's just the entire environment. It was a big room. I remember, with beds right and left, and you would walk and they would be, lying down or sitting up, and some of them had hair, some of them had no hair, and some were looking very sickly, like at the end of the road, and some of them were a little more livelier and, trying to have fun and whatnot. But for whatever reason, I did what I could to make their day
Yeah.
a
You
little
got to.
better
I mean,
at
that's,
that moment, but it was very heartbreaking, and it was like, this is not how I wanna make an impact in the world. It's
yeah.
not going into the hospitals, or cutting people open, or doing what my dad does, which is phenomenal because he brought, I don't know, thousands of kids into the world and helped so many women to live,
Yeah.
and it's fascinating. It's just not my way. It's not what I want to do with my life. And he was very appreciative that I did it, and that I went through the process, and then I said to his face, I don't want to do this. This is not my way. And then he supported me ever after.
So I think that's amazing. I have found that some of the things that I am most resistant to is what I end up doing. And it ends up being an amazing experience. And, I always like to say that, I'm open to anything and everything. Um, and the truth is, I just might have to have my arm twisted um, to get past, certain things, like I had, I've always kind of had, because I thought I was going to come out to Los Angeles and people were going to see me and I was going to perform and my talent. And I've been doing theater for, since I was a little kid. I thought, oh, this is going to be easy. And 5 years later, like still couldn't get a legitimate audition, not one, like, industry thing,
Yeah.
other than student films, which is outside the industry. And, at 5 years, I was like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? And I've had a number of those moments where I've got to say, okay, this isn't working. What do I have to do? And it's like, well, I didn't want to do this, but if it's going to, help me get where I want to be, then let's go for it. I ended up I started selling insurance to make a living almost 6 years ago.
Mhm.
And I literally had said to someone, I will never, ever sell insurance. There's no way. My sister was a financial advisor. There's absolutely no way. And I ended up going, oh, wow, I can really help people. I can make a living and I have flexibility. I was like, but I'm never going to do this type of insurance. Well, sure enough, I ended up doing that type of insurance too. Like, uh, some of the things that I've been most adamant against, like, because I had my goals over here, um, and I would say that selling insurance actually became kind of like what you were talking about, your experience waiting tables, and I've waited tables and I've bartended and all that. From a human perspective, it's amazing to serve people because like you said earlier, you really get the human condition for yourself through other people and in a large variety. Selling insurance is a business, and I've got to make money, and I've got to please them, and it's a little bit, if someone comes to a restaurant or a bar, they've already bought they're already going to buy whatever you're selling, whatever food or drink or whatever. With insurance, if you come to their door, they may need it, they may want it, but they don't have to buy. And there's literally thousands of other options, just like there's thousands of other restaurants. And the the thing that I realized is that ultimately my experience as an actor, which is my job as an actor, I feel is to make someone feel something. You know, make them hate me, make them love me, make them cry, make them feel anger, make them feel joy. It's to make them feel something. And as an insurance agent, that ended up being what my job was, is to make them feel something. Because if I could make them feel like they're protecting their family, and you know, I do believe I wouldn't sell insurance if I didn't believe in its capability to help people. But um, I actually have seen it help people when family, you know, when someone bought life insurance, they passed away and their family was actually helped by it, or car insurance to get into an accident, helped by it. And so if I can make them feel like, hey, my company that I work for, that I represent, is going to take care of you, they buy every time.
Right.
And it it became it raised the stakes of what I do as an actor, or what I do as a performer, and you know, kind of what I've always been wanting to do. Because you know, ultimately, you know, I think, you know, whatever spiritual, whatever religious or whatever, we're having a physical experience, and you know, we don't have no idea what comes next. We have no idea if something came before this, but we know we're in this body. And the one thing that this body is designed to do, it's to have sensory experiences. And then what our mind does with it is a whole nother conversation.
That's
But you know, so I feel like now I kind of feel like, well, everything can probably be boiled down to making someone feel something. And if you're making them feel good, then they're going to like you that much better. Like, and that's kind of, uh, you know, it changed my perceptions on other careers, other, you know, life paths. And, you know, the mechanic's job is actually to make me happy and to make me feel like I'm not going to die in the car. You know, it's the engine's going to last, the wheels are going to stay
right.
on. Um, you know, everyone's job, whether they look at it like this or not, I think to some extent is to make people feel hopefully better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. So when you were, I mean, it's amazing that you had the opportunity to, in the open mind at 15, to go and say, oh, let me find out. Was any part of you kicking and screaming along any of that?
Not really. No, I guess I was still in discovery mode.
Yeah,
And since it wasn't forced on me to go and do what my dad did, but it was an option, I went in with an open mind. I went
that's
in
awesome.
because I wanted to please my dad, and I loved what he did because he loved doing it. And that's why I actually gave myself the opportunity to go and check it out, because I knew how much he loved doing it, and how the reaction, I saw how people approached him many times to thank him
Hmm.
because he delivered the babies, or because he saved their wives, or
Yeah.
because he saved them as women. And I thought that was very heartwarming and interesting. And I went into seeing what it was with the open mind of having that experience as a third person. So, like I said, since it wasn't pressed on me that I needed to do something different, I was fine with it. I never had a problem with that. Um, I guess the kicking and screaming came after, because once you go into this career, I mean, nobody tells you how this career is going to be like. Nobody tells you that there's no blueprint. There's no like, oh, you have a client, and then that client is going to recommend you, and you're going to have a lot of clients, and then you're going to keep growing, and you have your you know your growth. Traditionally as a company, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
Sometimes some people recommend you, sometimes they don't. Sometimes it doesn't matter if they do. Sometimes you go at it every time as if it was the first time.
Yeah.
And in different place, like for example in the US, there's still a little bit more of an ascension when you go from a good job to the next one. It becomes kind of like a a ladder kind of hike. But in Mexico, it's not really like that. You unless you're a super famous, you're not going to be able to charge more for the job that you do because they're going
Right.
to treat you as if you were coming in as a first time. And nobody tells you that. Nobody tells you that it's going to be a lot of no's in your career, that you have to develop a thick skin to accept that, but also you have to be smushy and soft inside so you don't become a hardened person that's not going to feel anything, because that's how you actually make your money and you make a living.
You're the
So you have to
product.
be, you have what?
You're the product. I
You were
mean,
the
that's
product, yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's probably the biggest difference. If you're a musician, your music is the product, or a singer, it's what you sing.
Yeah.
If you're a painter, the painting, if you're a dancer, there's a certain level. It's kind of like being an athlete to some extent. I mean, obviously there's artistry there as well. But as an actor, you are the product. Your face, your personality,
Yeah.
your quirks, your eccentricities, the different aspects of yourself. Like that is the product. And
100%.
you're right. I think even if they tell you that, you can't know what that means
No,
until you're in it.
of course. And then there's the other part of it, which is the business side of it, that also nobody talks about.
Yeah.
That, I mean, you are your own business, so you have to treat yourself as if you were your own business. It's not solely the artistry that you can bring to the projects,
Yep.
whichever project you manage to get. It's, you have to make a living off of it, so you actually continue doing what you love to do, and you continue sharing that artistry with the world. So, because there's no education about how to go through the process of becoming that entity, that it's a business, then at least for a long time, for a lot of years in my career, most of the people that I hung out with that were artists were very much against the idea of becoming your business. And, it's anti-capitalism and all that, because we like to philosophize and we want to be very romantic about what we do. But the reality is that you have to eat, you have to pay rent, you have to
Oh yeah.
do anything. And nobody tells you about that
Well,
either.
earlier when you talked about your wife being an entrepreneur, my first thought was, well, you're an entrepreneur too. I mean, I think
Yeah,
you are an entrepreneur in other ways as well, but just by virtue of being an actor, you are an entrepreneur. Like,
right.
there's no way around it.
But we don't treat it as such. We
Most,
don't
yeah, very
actually,
few do.
in general, yeah. Some people do, and that some of them are very successful at it.
I think, well, and I haven't known many. I haven't known anyone that has gone from obscurity to super stardom kind of thing. And the people that I know that are successful, I would say they've always had an air of this is my job. Whether they're a you know maybe they think of themselves as a mechanic or whatever, and like I'm going to work on cars, except they happen to be memorizing lines and being an actor,
Right.
and they do well, those people, um but the vast majority, like none of those people are famous, I would say, that I know. But the vast majority, I worked with actors for a long time, from a management perspective, and getting them to look at this as a business was very difficult. And so even
Yeah.
saying, I'm a business manager, like that's what I do, business consulting, development, that was the family business, and growing up, and so like business was my background, and that was kind of my default, for what I know. And so even working with actors and like, this is your business, this is what you do. I'm a business consultant, business manager, helping you grow your business. Even then, they didn't get it. And
Yep.
there's one woman that went off and actually started a business, and she never really came back to acting, but she got it. Like when she left acting, she got it. And she actually, started utilizing all the things we had talked about, and ended up being very successful, as an entrepreneur, and in a completely different field. So yeah, it's a shame. I don't think I think in America, it's interesting to hear how it is, in Mexico, but in America, I don't think it's much different. I think, we're just so starry-eyed that, we have this passion, this dream, of performing, of singing, dancing, whatever, and we romanticize it, and we don't think of the actual work it takes to actually do it.
Well, this is the thing. We romanticize this so much as actors that we forget that every other piece in the puzzle of accomplishing to getting a role and working is all business. If
Yeah,
you have an agent, it's all business. If you have
yeah,
a manager, it's all business. If you have to go to school and train, it's business. Everything around us is business. We just tend to, and I'm obviously generalizing, there's exceptions, but we tend to think us as separate from the entirety of the industry, which is a business.
yeah.
It's
No, I mean, I'm on the same page with you. It's a funny thing, and actors are kind of like the last or one of the last pieces of the puzzle, like because the amount of work that goes into making a TV show or a movie, uh, so much of it, even years happens before actors are hired. And, with the exceptions of like celebrities that are going to help fund it or help do some of the business to get things, done. Otherwise, it's just, you know, someone said to me, your job as an actor is to audition. You don't get paid for it, but that's just the way your industry is set up. Sometimes, people get paid before the work. Some people get paid after the work. Some people get paid for, um, a piece of, like if you're a bartender, you have an hourly wage, maybe. Like when I bartended, I would set up the bar and I'd get an hourly wage. I'd have to be there an hour early and, set everything up, and I wasn't making any tips. And then the bar would open, and then it would take anywhere from 5 minutes to a couple of hours before I was actually making the money that I was there to make, which is tips. And I think when you look at it like that, it's like, okay, well, like if we talk to kids and said, okay, here's a job. Now on this job, you're not going to get paid until years down the road, but it's going to be a lot of money. Here's another job that, um, like being an athlete, you're going to spend the first 10 years of your career making no money, working for free, and proving that you're the best. And then you're going to get hired onto a team, and then you're just going to get like a lump sum of money, and maybe there's some bonuses in there, and but you're not going to see like a regular paycheck. And so you just have to keep loving the game and keep on playing, and know that you're going to get paid, quarterly or annually, depending on what the contract is. And then you've got the more conventional, jobs where it's like, well, you're going to get a weekly check, and then or a monthly check or a biweekly check. And and then, oh God, I had this one job. It was salary, which means I could work 12 hours a day or I could work 2 hours a day. I'm getting the same amount of money. Uh, and what they didn't tell you, and I did learn a lot from the job and I appreciated the job, but what they didn't tell you is that to really be successful and to do a good job, you're probably going to have a minimum of a 10-hour day. And all of a sudden, the hourly, like if you break it down from an hourly perspective, wasn't that much. And I would have made more, tending bar or working, someplace where I was going to make tips, if I worked that many hours. And so then it becomes a conversation of like, am I just trading my time for money, or am I doing something I really enjoy? regardless of the outcome, and I'm still able to pay my bills because we'll be on set sometimes for 12, 15 hours or longer, and it's amazing. And even when you're tired, you're like, no, 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 let's go again.
Right.
It's a different experience.
It's a completely different experience. We also wait a lot before the takes and before we go in front of the camera, and that's also part of what nobody tells you. Like it's phenomenal that you can commit to being there and have your mind being strictly there for whatever it is that you're going to be doing. But once you've done it for so long, I mean, I've done this for more than 20 years now. There's an automatic way of going into being focused. Once I say this is it, from this moment on, this is all my attention goes into this, because I already did the work. I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm saying, I know what's going on in the scene and whatnot. But from this moment on, I'm 100% here. The time before that, which could be 10 minutes to a few hours
Hmm.
before they set up the camera and the lights and they're ready for you, that's time that you can also utilize for other things,
Yeah.
and to keep improving on your product, which is yourself. Either you work out, this is, I mean, you work out, you make yourself presentable, you train, you educate yourself, you study other films, study other scripts, study other people, and like all of that is what you would do if you had a normal business of whatever
Yeah.
different, in order to make your business more amenable to being hired, and more, what's the word I'm looking for, more attractive.
Hmm.
When I say attractive, is not
Yeah.
physically attractive, it's attractive, the whole package has got to be attractive for me to hire that company, that service, that product, or whatever. And sometimes we forget that, and we just lie down, we do nothing, and we just spend the time. And time is the only asset that we have that we never can get back. So might as well do something positive, and in lieu of creating something better for ourselves and our
Yeah.
careers and whatever it is that we want to do. And like in general in life, it doesn't necessarily have to be acting, but in general in life, that is part of how we can grow.
No, I'm 100% with you. I think if I could shake up the world, as I've worked with people for, I started coaching. Oh,
Hi,
cute little doggy.
Michael.
My
Hey,
dogs
Michael.
luckily are
Hey,
laying
yeah.
down.
She just
Wh-
woke up. She's like, pay attention to me.
How old is she?
7 months.
Okay, she's a little puppy.
She's a puppy. Yeah.
Yeah, my dogs are Nico's 8, a little over 8 years old, and Madam Bean is a little over a year old. And we took him for a walk this morning before we jumped on here. And when I sat down behind the computer, I was like, Bean just wanted to play. She was like bringing me toys and playing tug of war. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like, I don't need that energy right now. So luckily, they're both just laying on the carpet right now.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, it's interesting. So I started teaching swimming when I was a child. I was, I think, 14, 15 when I gave my first swim lesson. And then I was 15 when I was an assistant coach. Um, and in some regard, I've been working with people for 30 years, for most of my life. Even though I don't know what I know most of the time. You know what I mean? It's like, I
Yeah.
know everything. Oh, wait, nope, I don't know anything. I know everything. Nope, nope, didn't know that. Um,
Yeah.
but you know, in working, especially working with kids, it's like, God, if we could just get them, like kids around the world, out of this idea that whatever stories, their parents and their community and, the media is foisting on them, it doesn't have to go that way. It doesn't have to look like that. It can be whatever you want it to be. And there seems to be like, you've had obviously, privileged life. I've had a obviously privileged life. And I feel like, some of the kids that I've worked with, their perspective coming from a not as privileged lives as you and I have had, their perspective is, well, the world's against me and I can't do it. And it's like, well, it's not true though. Like, and I see people in every country accomplishing things and achieving things that, shouldn't be possible. And yet there they are, they're doing it. So whatever the system is that you think is oppressing you, more often than not, it's there to help you. And it comes down to time. It's like, how are you going to use your time? Like, most people nowadays, I feel like, spend a lot of time on, gaming and social media, and this priceless thing that we have, time, that's also free. It's the only abundant free thing we have is time. It's also priceless. And if we could just figure out a way to tell ourselves, okay, what do I need to do in this moment that's going to get me where I want to be, then everyone would be where they want to be. Everyone would be happy. Everyone would be doing, what they want in life, I feel like.
Well, I think we have to go back to the origin of this conversation. It's like how do we perceive our own existence, our own reality? So what you were saying, if you happen to be born in a place that it's well off and you have privilege, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be successful or whatever you do, because you can. I mean, I know a lot of people that went into the heavy drugs for a long time and they messed up their lives coming from
Yep.
super well off families. And I know people that came from nothing, economically speaking, and they created empires, And so I think it's not necessarily what do you have to do something. It's how do you want your life to be based on who you are? What is how do you want to see life? Because if you say everything is against me, then yeah, everything is going to be against you. If you say I see opportunities everywhere I go, then that's what you're going to be doing. That's how you're going to figure out your life. And from then on, you can actually get to know yourself better, which is one of the things that we don't do as human beings in general. We try to avoid talking to oneself. It's everything is about the exterior. Everything is somebody else's fault, or because of somebody else, or someone else, or something else, and it's never about me. But the reality is that we create our own reality. The truth is that we create our own reality, and that reality is solely mine. The way I see the world, the way I interact with it, it's solely mine. You don't share it with me because it's who I am. From then on, we can start figuring out what it is that we want to do. Because I can tell you this, I went into acting because I wanted to be seen,
Mm.
not because I wanted to have a big impact in the rest of the world. I figured that out many, many years after I started it. I mean, we're talking about potentially 2 decades after I started it. And I always said, oh, no, this is something I have to do. I need to do it. And that's why I do it. It's very passionate. And it was, yeah, I mean, that's how I saw it. But it was complete BS because it was not something I needed. We don't actually need anything at all. We need to breathe and eat, and that's
Yeah.
it, basically. Uh, but once I realized why I was doing it, then I got to enjoy it. Then I got to choose it,
Yeah.
choose to be an actor because I love being an actor because I can make an impact now from this place of peace, inner peace.
Yeah.
But for a long time, I wasn't, and I couldn't think about other ways of making it viable for me to actually accomplish being an actor on films and television, why not? And I did a lot of it, but I never got to the place I wanted to because I wasn't there. And but I needed to understand why I did it in the first place.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so that raises an interesting question in my mind because how you spend your time on sets, because like you said, there's tons of downtime when you're filming, especially if you're doing a project with more money. The more money it is, the longer it takes to set up, and the longer it takes before you're in front of the camera. So has how you spend your time in that downtime changed drastically
Oh yeah.
now versus 20 years ago, or even 5 years ago?
Oh yes. Yeah. Now, like I said, now after you do this so much, you have certain confidence that you're going to be able to deliver.
Hmm.
So you more or less can know when you're going to be on set based on asking people certain questions or based on the rhythm of the production or different things. So now the way I do it is I divide my time in different pieces, and if obviously if you're tired, you have to rest because you got to be full of energy when you go into the scene. Uh, but I use part of it to just reiterate the script, what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, everything that I did as a research, everything that I did as a development of this character
Hmm.
and this particular scene. But also part of that time I use it to read something that has no relationship whatsoever because I want to keep educating myself on different things. Because at the end of the day, actors are everything. We're all these the careers that you can think of, we do them. We live them. We live through them. So if at some point I want to be an astronomer, well, I gotta know anything. I gotta know something about it, you know. So I study different things, whatever it is that I can find that I can get my hands on. I bring it, and if I have a book or anything, I just or the internet even, I go into it for a small fraction of time. And then another fraction of time, I may work out a little. And then another fraction of time, I talk to people that I love and I have interactions with the crew and I have different things. It's just it becomes my space of being when I'm on set. It's not just I gotta go to work and I gotta do this and I gotta do that. It's since I'm gonna be spending so many hours there and so many of those hours are gonna be downtime,
Hmm.
I have to make it my space. If I feel that I don't belong there, then it's gonna be uncomfortable. I'm not gonna be able to concentrate in what I want to do and deliver the best performance possible. So that has changed over time. At the beginning, I was completely focused on what I had to do, and then I would spend 2 hours waiting for it, and I would be super exhausted by the time I got to set because I was all like there, and then uh, I couldn't deliver anymore
Yeah,
because I
you're
didn't
already done.
place myself enough or just gave myself the space to be where I needed to be. And being an actor is being present. So I use my present to do what I'm doing in the present.
So,
That's it.
so you're starting to try to figure out how to revitalize Durango as a film town. Does that mean you're going to end up being a studio executive? Is that in your future?
I mean, I've been a producer for over 10 years, so that's probably a continuation to that. Just producing stuff, developing stuff, and making connections with other big companies and streaming services and whatnot. Yeah, that's the idea.
That's interesting. I mean, I feel like nowadays you almost can't be an actor unless you're a producer as well. It's changed. I watched. I can't think of the name. It was the Lucille Ball, and Desi
Ricardo,
Arnaz. What was it again?
the new movie.
Yeah, the new movie with Javier Bardem and Nicole Kidman, and he played Desi Arnaz, and she played Lucille Ball. Lucille Ball, and there's a scene where the guy playing the executive producer of the show, the showrunner, says, where Nicole Kidman, Lucille Ball is asking,
Hold on a second.
yeah, go for it.
No, went away.
um, where Lucille Ball is asking the showrunner to give Desi an executive producer credit. And it's so funny to me because at that point in time in film history, there was only one executive producer, and it was the showrunner on a TV show. There was no other producers, and there was the network, obviously, the studio, but there were no other producers, and it was like a really big deal.
Yeah.
My dog's playing with something. I'm not sure how much noise it's making. Um, but it was a really big deal at that point in time, um, to have another producer. Now, if you go and watch any film, how many production companies are involved in getting that film made? Yeah, how many producers? You go up and look at the credits on any TV show. There's 20 producers, 20 directors, 20 writers, and it's amazing. Which is also what I love about the industry, because in my time, it's always been a collaborative industry to some extent. Um, and I feel like that's where the magic is. It's this machine that is operating. It's almost like a headless machine at times, but it's operating, and when it's working, it's working at such an optimal level, and
Yeah.
everyone's doing exactly what they need to do to make an amazing picture, which is it's phenomenal, I think.
I think you have a very important point there. It is very collaborative. Like the work that we do as actors has to come together with everybody else's.
Yeah,
The DP, the I mean everything. Just from the script, whatever we come up with and we bring to life, that's already a collaboration. Because we have a point of view, we have a way of doing things. We have if you have the same script for two different actors, there's gonna be two different versions of it because we're different.
yeah,
And I think nowadays is like we love to romanticize the fact that before it was so easy. There was like just very few people doing it. But in reality, it was actually a lot harder to come up with something. It was more expensive. It was very exclusive. It was not easy to get into anything. And now I'm not saying it's easy, but I mean, you can make a film with a phone.
I know. It's amazing.
There's there's so much more opportunity now for anybody in the entertainment industry, for television and film, to do things and be seen. And yes, it's more competitive because of the same reason. There's so many people that have the ability and the opportunity to create anything. But it's also because of the fact that you can make it so easily, you can experiment and become better at it faster. You can mess up a short film and you're not gonna have to pay $50,000 to make it.
Yeah,
It's gonna cost you maybe a couple pizzas.
yeah.
That's
I mean,
it.
yeah, 20 years ago, even just 20 years ago, when I first came out to Los Angeles, I think the Canon XL1 or whatever was like a new camera, and maybe it had been out for a year, and it was a mini DV, and it was several $1,000s, but it
Yeah,
was affordable compared to like an Ari Lux, um, or whatever the different cameras were, in the film, and the cost of development and everything else. And the quality obviously was low, but you could kind of play. And so if you wanted it to be good enough to be shown in a theater, then you were going to spend a minimum $20,000. If you wanted it to be good enough to put on like a demo reel, you could all of a sudden do it for, a few hundred, if you knew someone with a camera, and if you had to buy the gear, a few thousand. And now, like, you're right, you can do it with your phone. Your phone is 100 times, 200 times better than the XL1, Canon XL1,
yeah,
and easier to light. The actual quality. Um, I mean, it's a different game.
yeah. I mean, consider at least when I started, there was no digital cameras.
Yeah,
It was all film still. And then suddenly you have all of these digital cameras coming out, and you have the red camera, which was a huge deal when it came out.
oh yeah,
And people were debating whether that was going to be the future or not, or if they wanted to move into digital because it's obviously very different. And there was a lot of nostalgia about film, and a lot of people didn't want to leave it because it was so beautiful and pristine, and it
The
has all this grain
texture,
and
yeah.
texture. And then suddenly, it's very seldom that you shoot with a film. I mean, a lot of the film companies had to change the entire business models because it just doesn't make any sense. Nobody's using it. So just thinking about that, it's a huge deal. It's like now there's no excuse if you want to start doing something to actually just do it. You know, now we live in the era of social media, and social media is basically shooting content consistently for the rest of the world to watch. And the people that are successful on social media are their own entrepreneurs
Yeah.
because they actually create entire teams of shooting and editing, post production, and everything to continue doing the content that they do, and they work. I mean, there's a lot of criticism about them, but they work a lot of hours.
Yeah.
They
Oh
work a
yeah.
lot. I mean, they're always looking for that moment. They're always looking for that piece of content that is going to attract more attention than the competition, which is the rest of the world. And and they're always there. I mean, the successful ones are always posting, and they do well.
Yeah.
You know,
Consistency. I mean, but I mean, do you think consistency, I mean, consistency is what makes a social media person successful. But do you think that
other
consistency, is universal? I mean, it kind of seems like, if you want to be a good mechanic or a good barista, you got to deliver a working car every time or a good cup of coffee every time. If you want to be a good actor, you've got to be consistent. So, like,
I
do you
mean,
think consistency is
we're
universal or?
actors. We're actors. We're human beings, and as such, we cannot be precise 100% of the time.
No.
That's a fact. And consistency in the way I'm talking about it, it's related to discipline. If you discipline yourself to create constantly, then eventually you will become a better version of yourself in whatever it is that you do. It could be anything at all. As long as you're doing it every time with the purpose of learning something new, understanding, and being better. If you just repeating it as a robot, then it's going to be mechanical and it's going to be the same error over and over and over until the end of time. But the discipline of doing versus thinking about it is what's going to give you that leverage and that difference or that step up in whatever it is that you do. And I'm talking about anything that you do as a person. If you want to develop a business, if you want to have a good relationship with your spouse, if you
Right.
want to be a better actor, if you want to be a better director of photography, you have to do it. It doesn't serve you just thinking about it. If you think about, like, let's say, a director of photography, if you think about how lights will look in this combination, but you never actually put them up, then you don't actually know if it works. You have to do it. You have to become an action individual.
No, I think
And
that's an amazing point. I think that's. I had I did this TV show years ago, and this young kid who like he was a fan of the show, and so he asked me if he could interview me for his IG streaming. I'm like, yeah, sure, okay. And I had a small part. I get killed, and I'm just thinking, why does he want to talk to me? I'm super happy to do it, and grateful that someone's actually paying attention. But at the same token, part of me had that whole self-worth thing. It's like, because I'm not where I want to be in my acting career, it's like, why does he want to talk to me? um but super nice kid. We had a great time talking, and at some point in time, not too long ago, I saw that he was going to visit a film school because I now follow him on his social media. And I said something to the effect of, "Oh, one day you're gonna, end up hiring me, or whatever." Um, and he asked, "Do you think I should go to film school?" And I was like, "Well." there's pros and cons, like, because it's going to force you to do it, which is what you're talking about, because you're just going to do it and you could do it and you do it again and do it again, which I think is incredibly valuable and necessary on so many levels. And, but on the other side, do you really need to pay thousands of dollars to go and do it when any MacBook, and probably because of, some of the software out there, probably any computer, any phone, you've got basically a portable, movie school, with you, because you can always be working. You've got YouTube videos. There's a million videos on lighting, on sound, and like anything you want to learn is on YouTube. Like literally, I was trying to figure out how to change something in my car, a filter in my car, because I couldn't figure out where it was. I
Oh
went
yeah.
on YouTube and they had the exact model and year of my car, and I was able to figure out how to change the filter. Um, so I was like, I don't know. I don't know if it's a good idea to go to film school and spend thousands of dollars. Because the one thing you're going to get, that, is you're going to get a system to force you to do something, and you're going to be forced into a peer group. Yeah, obviously you get to choose your friends, but at the same token, you don't get to choose who has a mission to the school. So you're going to be stuck with people of their making. And I mean, this is all about relationships. Everything's about relationships. So if the people that they chose that year aren't driven the same way you're driven, they're not going to be good running mates for you. And
Yeah, but then if
conversely,
they are more than you, then
right, they're
good.
again not going to be good running mates. So I was like, there's so many reasons not to go. There's so many reasons to go. I was like, I don't know what to say other than, do you feel that this is the right move for you? And do you think you're going to get value out of it? And if you do, go for it. And this is obviously money notwithstanding, the cost of tuition and everything else, and debt, potential debt, or having family to pay. That's a whole nother conversation. But, if you think that this is going to be good for you, then do it. And then you can always change. You can always drop out and say, no, I'm better off doing this on my own. Um, I, I don't know. What do you think of that? Because that was the best advice I could come up with.
I think I think one of the reasons why people go to school nowadays is to create a community. You get to know people that are like-minded, that doing things like you, that may have a different personality or different drives, or however you want to say it. But it's more about relationships, as you well said. Now, I think all of the information or most of the information that you need to do anything at all, is out there in the internet. It lives
Yeah.
everywhere. So I agree. You don't actually have to pay thousands or dozens of thousands of dollars to learn something that you can learn at any given point. The difference is, it would matter what kind of personality you have. If it's better for you to be in a place where you're going to be directed to doing things and you have to deliver because there's a grade and there's a proposition of moving forward in your learning process, but you have to be pushed to do it because your personality it works like that,
Hmm.
then yeah, go to school, go to a place like that. If you're self-sufficient and you're disciplined and you want to go after the things that you want without anybody telling you to do it, then no, I mean, go find it on the internet and you start doing it. Start messing up, shoot something, cut it, see how it works, see how it doesn't work, watch movies, read stuff, read anything from anybody that has to do with whatever it is that you want to learn. Go to forums, go to festivals, go to like all of that.
Yeah.
It's that money you were going to put into the education. You can actually get it from real life industry people and real life action. So I guess it's a matter of who you are and how you want to proceed into getting whatever it is that you do. Um, that's about it. I mean, every time an actor asks me if they should go to school for acting, I say no. Is that you don't? Nobody's going to ask you for any kind of paper that you
Right.
went to school for acting ever in your life, unless you want to become a teacher at a university. Then don't do it. There's
It's
so many
funny.
courses.
The if I was going to do it all over again, um, I probably would go to school for acting, but I would very specifically go to a school that, like RADA, I'd go to, go or, in England, um, because of who the alumni is, essentially, who you're going to meet.
Okay.
And there are certain, like, as an actor, I think your only real asset is who you are as a person. So, like you were talking about earlier, like, developing that, I think that's crucial. Learn about everything, go and get a job, be someone. And once you are someone, then you can go and play someone else because you now have perspective in which to come at a character. But if you don't know who you are and if you're not a fully, developed person, then how can you play a fully developed person?
Right.
And if you're a kid, I think it's a different situation slightly, but you still have to, be a kid. The famous story of, Leave It to Beaver, one of the, all-time classic Hollywood TV shows. Jerry Mathers booked that role. He wanted, I don't know if this is a very well-known story or not, but I think it perfectly epitomizes, why child actors become child actors. He didn't want to be at the audition, and he wanted to be at his Cub Scout meeting. And he was doing whatever, Pinewood Derby or whatever it was, and he wanted to be at his scouting meeting. And the producer or director said, "Do you want to be here?" He's like, "No, actually, I have got a meeting, and I'm going to go be with my friends and go play and do all of this stuff." And he booked the role because they're like, "That's who we want. That's who Leave It to Beaver is. He's a kid, who would rather play with his friends than go get a job or be on TV or whatever."
Right.
And the Harry Potter kids, I just watched the retrospective, 20-year reunion or whatever. Like, those kids were just wanted to play. They loved the books. They were excited by the books, and they just wanted to play. And I feel like that's what a child is. So now you're going to get to see, a child. Um, and the one thing, whether and I think this holds true for anything, if you're going to go to school for it, go where you're going to meet the people that you want to surround yourself with. And if if not for that, then why? Like, lawyers go to Harvard because Harvard is where all the top lawyers are. But if you don't want to associate with those people, then don't go to Harvard,
Right.
because you can be a great lawyer and go to, some unheard of school. You're less likely to be a big name lawyer, but is that really why you want to be a lawyer? So,
Yeah, but I mean that does have that is different because if you say I'm a lawyer from Harvard, it automatically triggers something in the audience that you have in front of you saying, "Oh, this must be a good lawyer," because it's traditionally where the good lawyers come from. But if you say, "Oh, I came out of RADA or I came out of um, I don't know the Meisner Center or I
yeah,
came out of whatever," it's like, all right, I mean, do it.
yeah.
It doesn't
Let's
really
see
matter
it.
where you came from.
Yeah.
You have to do it. I give two pieces of advice to my students now when I have them. One is go if you can, go and live somewhere else for a little bit. You will find perspective, you will learn how things are done differently in different places, learn a new language potentially, and just see the world from a different, entirely new perspective. And then the second one is do anything in your power to not need to make money doing acting. Have a business or have something else that sustains you. So you, when you go into an audition, you go open-minded, you go fresh, and you go ready to just enjoy the process. If you go needing to have that audition, that that is very obvious when you're on the other
Yeah.
side of that room. And that's it. I mean,
That's
if somebody told me that at the beginning, I probably would have done many things differently. I had to learn the hard way.
the number one thing you said, I think, is the one thing that I wish more than anything someone would have made clear to me. And someone tried to tell me, their experience, the money or lack thereof is what kept them from, being able to stick it out. But get a job, doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's something that you can do and you can take some amount of pride in, like, whether it's bartending, or being a mechanic or whatever. Like, just pick something that you can be proud of, you can do, and you can make a living so that you can do what you want to do. Because if otherwise, like, I've had every job under the sun. I've worked construction, I've been a server, I've been a bartender, I've sold this, I've sold that. I went back to my roots and did consulting and business and all that stuff. Um, I got hired as a swim coach, insurance. Like, I've done it all, and I found value in it all. Um, God, it's ironic as I'm saying that. Part of the reason why I got into acting, and part of the reason why, like, oh yeah, I want to do movies, is because I would get to go and be a pilot and a firefighter and all these different careers, and I would get to travel and do all of these things. So it's funny as I'm hearing myself saying that. Well, I didn't get to play every single different job, or character with a different job or whatever, but I certainly got to have every job. So I guess I fulfilled that goal subconsciously without even realizing it. That's really funny. I'm gonna have to think about that more, because that's a trip. That was definitely one of my missions. Is I want to have all these different jobs. I want to have, like, I want to play characters with all these different career paths. Something that I wouldn't ordinarily do, and that is
Right?
exactly what my life has been.
Yeah, we forget that we get what we want,
Yeah.
and it may not look the way we thought of it, but we get it. I mean, I also started much of this wanting to travel and doing all these different characters with these professions and whatnot, and that's
Hmm.
what I've done. Literally, that's what I've done. But anyway, it's almost 2 hours of a
Oh
conversation.
wow.
I'm gonna have to get off the call, but it's been a pleasure talking to you again,
Yeah,
catching
man.
up, and doing this with you.
Thank you so much for doing this for me, or with me. I mean, this has really been awesome. And maybe we'll do a round two in the future at some point.
Absolutely, whenever you want.
This is just the beginning for Foundational Steps, the show. We have many, many, many more amazing conversations to come. Hit that like, subscribe, and bell so that you can be notified of our upcoming episodes. If you like this one, check out Alberto online in the show notes. His links are there. And on Netflix, Narcos Mexico. This is your life story, and you get to write it and rewrite it as many times as you want.